Hi, everybody.
Hello there, Angela.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Oh,
Good.
Hi, Miss Angela.
Hello.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Certainly ready for one.
Or
All right, it is now 6 p.m. We will call the meeting to order. And with that, let me greet all of you and thank you for being here tonight. And we'll look forward to an excellent audit report. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Alderwoman West. Alderwoman Chapman. Alderwoman Reed. Oh, she's connecting. Alderman Carroll.
Present.
Alderman Thomas.
present.
Alderwoman Dales.
present.
Alderwoman Avant-Elliott.
Present.
Alderwoman Reed.
Present.
Okay, and then we have the city attorney, the mayor, the city attorney. Is Patrick, are you here? I don't think so. The auditor and the city clerk. All
All right.
present, Mayor, except West and Tapman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move for the agenda to be approved.
Is there a second? Alderman Thomas, you're muted, but I see your hand. Your hand went up. All right, Alden, has been moved and properly second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any opposers? As have it, new business. The new business will be the auditor's report. And so at this time, I will turn it over to the auditors.
All right. Thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you about the audit for the June 30, 2020 statements. Do you want me to share my screen so I can put the report up, or do you just want me to talk about it? Okay.
If you can screen share, Mayor, is that fine?
Sure.
Okay. There, can you all see that?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, how about now?
There.
Okay. All right, so I usually just go through a summary of the financial statements with you all, and then I kind of walk through the letter of compliance and internal controls that we present and your management letter comments. And so I can go into as much detail on those or as little detail as you'd like. So when we get there, you know, we'll see how it goes, okay? So let's start with the memo on your financial statements. So we are independent in regard to the city's management and operations, and our audit was performed in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America. We obtain an understanding of internal control to determine the nature, timing, and extent of our audit procedures, but we were not hired to do an internal control audit. However, if something comes to our attention that we think could be better improved, if changes were made, we're going to address that in the management letter. And then per our independent auditor's report, we do apply limited procedures to your management's discussion, analysis, and supplemental information. 2020, there were no significant changes to the city's accounting policies and estimate policies, and there were no disagreements or difficulties encountered during the audit. There were no difficulties with the staff. There were some issues this year that the city had, and Patrick was very helpful. Patrick, Fran, Lori, they were very helpful in us through it because I think it was a challenge, and we'll get into that a little bit more. There were no uncorrected misstatements aggregated by us during the audit that would be material individually or in the aggregate to the financial statements. And we do believe that the city's financial statements present fairly in all material respects its activities in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. And that unqualified opinion is what the city wants to have their financial statements, what they would like their financial statements to be. We did have 4 significant deficiencies and 19 management letter comments, and we have discussed those with management, and they're already taking steps to, I believe, try to improve those. But we'll get into that again, like I said, a little bit later. So for your fund statements, when we look at the revenues for 2020 compared to 2019, the revenues did go down slightly, about 6%, 4,401,738 compared to 4,689,572. On the flip side, your expenditures also went down in your general fund. They were 4,609,901 compared to 4,756,378 in the prior year. So, but your revenues went down more than what your expenditures did, so you ended up with a deficit of 208,063 at the end of the year in your general fund. You have a pretty strong fund balance of $1 million, $1,040,817 at the beginning of the year. So your fund balance is still at $832,654. And I do know that, you know, revenues were down, and COVID, I mean, I think played a significant part in why that occurred, because, you know, courts had to be stopped and tickets weren't as written as much as they were before, and people stopped driving. I mean, and I think overall revenues are headed down. Your capital improvement fund had $727,590 of revenue in 2020 compared to $1,793,433 in 2019. Your expenditures, though, were down significantly also, $916,869 compared to $1,771,629 the year before. This was a function of you had some big projects in progress in 2019, and those were wrapped up pretty much at the end of the year. So your grant revenues went down as well as the expenditures related to those grant projects. So this is typical of what you would see. Overall, your revenue was under your expenditures of $189,279. You had some funds transferred in, mainly I think to cover some of the bond monies I think that were left over could cover some of those expenditures. So you had $26,836 of transferred in money and insurance recoveries. So overall, your net change in your fund balance was $162,443 to the deficit. And your ending fund balance was $1,434,887 at the end of the year in your capital improvement fund. On your debt service fund, here you had revenues of $943,275 compared to $978,750 the year before. Your debt payments totaled $959,654 compared to $956,213. So your payments were a little bit more than the revenue that came in. So you had a deficit there of $16,379 compared to $22,537. Pretty much in line with what the debt activity should be. And then we have your bond fund, and in this fund, very little revenue came in, $8,073. You spent $1,301. But you still have a fund balance in your bond fund of $863,969 at the end of the year. And then your last fund is your sewer lateral fund. That's over here. And pretty much very similar to the prior year, $126,936 of revenue compared to $128,061 the year before. Expenditures were down about $30,000 from the prior year at $61,941. So overall, you had an increase in your fund balance in your sewer lateral fund of $64,995. And that always varies from year to year. So the good thing is that your revenues that you have coming in are covering those expenditures. At the end of the year, your fund balance in your sewer lateral fund was at $327,455. Any questions so far? Okay. So then the next thing I would like to talk about is the internal control and compliance letter. I think I made that a little too big. Okay, so this letter is, we call it the Yellow Book letter. And basically in this letter, we tell the city that, again, when we're planning an audit, we look at internal control to consider what audit procedures we need to incorporate into our work, but we're not expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the city's internal control. However, when we're doing our work, and if there's something that we see as a deficiency, then we're going to report it in this letter. If it is of the magnitude of a significant deficiency, that will be reported in the letter. But if it's of the magnitude of a material weakness, that will also be reported in this letter. And so if it's a material weakness, that means that there is a reasonable possibility that a material misstatement will not be prevented or detected and corrected on a timely basis.
I got a question.
Pardon?
Mayor, I got a question. I can't raise my hand.
Go ahead.
Could you explain to me what a material misstatement is? I saw that a number of times in your report. What exactly is that?
A material misstatement would mean there's a large mistake within your financial statements that nobody was able to catch.
Okay, thank you.
And a significant deficiency is not it's less in scope than a material weakness. And we did identify some deficiencies that in your internal control that we believe to be significant deficiencies, and those are reported in this letter, and we can go through those. As part of your compliance, we look to see, when we're looking to see if your statements are free of material misstatements, we will perform tests of compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, contracts, grant agreements. And if there's something that we see that has a direct and material effect on your financial statements, we would disclose it in this letter. However, we are not giving an opinion on your compliance with laws in our report. And so I'm pleased to say that we did not find anything that we felt needed to be put into the letter as far as the non-compliance. So then I'm going to go through the schedule of findings. Sound good to everybody? Okay. The first one is a repeat comment that the city's personnel need to have the expertise and experience related to accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America and to the standards acceptable to financial audits contained in government auditing standards. And a lot of cities get this because the staff really doesn't understand all of the accounting governmental, the generally accepted accounting principles that are in existence. And we put this in the letter because the city should not be relying on the auditor to find adjustments because of that. And so some cities will have an outside person, another accountant, review their financial statements so that they can fix this issue. In your case, Patrick he's your treasurer, and I think he reviews your financial statements, but he's very new to the governmental accounting sector. And so I think last year he spent a lot of time learning about, about the different rules. And I feel like each year he's gaining more and more experience. And so hopefully over time, this can be eliminated as well. So we're just recommending more review of your financial statements at year end.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
Yes.
may I ask a question?
Go right ahead, please.
So with that type of expertise, I think you said expertise and experience related to accounting principles, where would someone get that type of training? In your recommendation, you said appropriate training or to form an audit finance committee. So when you're talking about appropriate training, where would one get that, or are there agencies, are there organizations that provide that type of training, or is it on the job, or
I
is
mean,
it
people get
education?
it. I think people get it from a number of different ways. I mean, people get it through college education, getting a degree in accounting.
Uh-huh,
If you have an audit committee, it might be consist of people that are already accountants,
uh-huh,
that do that as their job, which is
uh-huh.
another good thing to do. If you can have an audit committee that can review the monthly financial statements, that would be something that you should consider as well.
So then basically, it's an accountant then to review those statements is what you're looking at in this?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The second comment is very similar to the first because it has to do with reviewing your financial statements. And we did have a number of adjustments that we had to make to your financial statements, and some of those were material. And we don't want that to happen. I mean, it's better if we can come in and do the work and there are no adjustments. That we had 28 adjustments, and they're included in your management letter. And like I said, some of them were material. So the second one, again, says that there needs to be more review of the financial statements so that they can be corrected before year end.
I'm sorry, Mayor. This is Teresa. I had a question for Mr. Owen. Can you hear me?
I can't, you're kind of muffled, Teresa. Is that you?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Here, that's better.
Yeah, I know that there is the GFOA, that a lot of the city treasurers go to that training that they offer. Is that not something you recommend?
The GFOA to do what?
For training for new
Oh.
city treasurers.
Now I mean, there are classes offered through the GFOA if people want to take those. Yes, absolutely. You could do that.
Okay, and I was just wondering, because I didn't have time to look at past years. I know we have never had any material misstatements, but are you saying this was kind of less normal? If I can say it that way?
Less normal.
Like in past years, because I know you had to do some corrections at the end of the year. And we were told by the staff that they lost documentation, our QuickBooks went down. There was a lot of rekeying, rebooking that had to happen near our fiscal year end. So I'm not sure if you knew all of that. So was this like less normal than past years? Was it more corrections your team had to do?
I mean, we've always had a number of we have in recent years had a number of adjustments for your city.
Mhm.
However, you are correct in that they lost data with QuickBooks. And I do think that did play a role in why some of these, just looking back and reviewing things with Pat, and it just seems like some of these things occurred because they were trying to re-enter things at year end, and things might have been misdated and misdated, like they were dated maybe the date the check cleared instead of the date the check was written.
Right.
Trying to get the information in, and that did cause some issues. Yes. And that's what I said. There were things that happened with this audit that Patrick and Lori and Fran really helped us get through, but that was a big issue.
Okay.
Which is why there's number 3 for the significant deficiencies. The city should have a proper backup of accounting data that should be able to be restored, to restore information when necessary. And that has to do with that whole issue with losing your QuickBooks file and then having to re-enter so many transactions.
So I know Patrick's on the phone. So did we or did we not purchase the QuickBooks, the online version of QuickBooks? And now the data is backed up than just on one terminal, that it's on the cloud?
I'm sorry, but you're getting a little muffled up there. It's hard to understand what you're saying.
I'm sorry. We had, I know he had put it in the budget before to purchase the cloud-based QuickBooks software. You know, before we only had like a desktop version, so there was really no true backup except for on that terminal. So I'm wondering, did we purchase that? Have we went forward for fiscal year 2021? Did we purchase that package now that we won't have the deficiency going forward?
Oh, this is Patrick. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, so it was purchased, but everything hasn't been transitioned just yet. So everything, half of it is saved. The other portion is still being worked.
Okay, so did
So
we
the
start
so the
with,
so the systems are in place. Everything's not transitioned yet.
I mean, not the old data, but like the
Right,
next year for July
right.
1? Did we start with the cloud base for July 1, 2020?
Well, we purchased it after July, and didn't get the implementation until after that. It started around the same time that the issue with the lost files occurred. So that that really disrupted transitioning completely over. So it's set up, it's linked, is some of those things are done, but as far as like fully using it in the office, it's not quite implemented fully just yet.
Thanks.
All right, Angela, you can proceed.
Okay, and then the fourth significant deficiency has to do with the payroll transaction process. And the city needs to have a proper approval process in place for payroll transactions. There were transactions in various payroll liability accounts that need to be researched to ensure that the amounts withheld from employees' pay are being treated properly. This can result in errors occurring, and if only one person is doing the payroll, then it's very difficult if there's a problem that somebody would recognize that. And that, it has to do, not only with withholdings, but even in putting in hours and things of that nature. So I know we're a small city, but there needs to be some kind of oversight with the payroll process, that the person that's entering the payroll has somebody else that reviews what was input, so that the output matches what the expectation was, because otherwise you're going to be finding out after the fact constantly that there's an error if one does occur.
Can I ask the question, Mayor?
Sure.
Angela, I'm sure you work with other municipalities, and I've noticed that even cities that are smaller than ours, they have the fingerprint, where the employee comes in and clocks in and clocks out. Would that be, is that a help? Could that help with the keeping of the records for the employees?
In some ways that might help, but you would still need somebody to review what's being entered, because that's not going to take care of withholdings from people's pay. It's not going to take care of when a new employee starts, that the right information was put in at the beginning. And those systems can become quite timely. I mean, if you're having your department heads review the payroll hours so that they're in agreement of what the pay should be, the issue I feel that need more work is when it's being transmitted to your payroll company, that payroll register, is anybody looking at it and say, this all makes sense? And looking to make sure that if something's withheld from somebody's pay, that was remitted where it was supposed to go, or is that just continuing to grow in a liability, and maybe there's an oversight that somebody's deductions aren't being forwarded to the proper places. So I don't know that would solve that problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Ms. Dorn, a quick question on that. Paycom is our payroll service. So I was under the impression, back in my heyday of doing payroll, that, our payroll company did all of that disbursements for us, like garnishments and state taxes and, different things like that. Is that not happening for the city? Is Lori having to do that herself?
They do your taxes. I think they're doing your garnishments, but there's some other withholdings that I believe the city is still taking care of. Isn't that correct, Patrick?
Yeah, that was correct. It was, and I can't recall the exact line item, but you had pointed it out that it was prior years that it had been accumulating withholdings for, I think, police department related activity. And that was one specific line that wasn't the responsibility of Paycom. That was coming through the office directly.
And I think there's some maybe Aflac related payments that just the city still makes that the company's not making for you. It seemed like there was more than one.
So is it like the 401k and the 457?
I believe that that
Yeah,
the
yeah,
city's still making those as well, yes. But
Yeah,
Mr.
because
right.
Management
that
goes, you're
is,
right,
yeah, that's completely off. I know that personally.
right.
Do they make our medical payments, Patrick?
The medical insurance payments,
Uh-huh.
those should be coming from the from Paycom.
Okay,
I thought they were.
thank you.
Not because I'm just thinking about, we did just make the medical insurance payment, so maybe that we are paying that.
I think you probably are, Patrick.
Yeah,
because
we
that
are
would
paying
be-
that. I do recall we just made a payment for that.
Because that wouldn't be completely coming out of employees' pay. It'd be part employee, part employer.
Right.
Right. That's true. I mean, but I mean, just like with your taxes, I'm tired, sorry, vacation brain. But part of it is employee pay and some is employer, like unemployment tax.
Right,
But
the
a lot,
employer has to match that. But I think, I'm pretty sure that when they take your money from, your account of what they need to make those, meet those requirements, they're pulling that out as well.
right, exactly. So I'm wondering why some of these other things aren't being handled by Paycom, but that's another conversation. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome. Okay. So moving on, now we get into the management letter portion. So these are things that the management letter, we identified that we think improvements could be made. And so there are recommendations and suggestions. And so we try to work with the city to see if you could implement some of these to make your internal control stronger without having to be at a detriment to the city. And so in our management letter, we explain again that management's responsible for your accounting policies, and the significant accounting policies used by the city have been described in your financial statements. There were no new policies adopted during the year, and the existing policies were not changed. And we noted no transactions that the city entered into during the year for which there was a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus. Accounting estimates are an integral part of the financial statements, so your statements will have estimates in them. Depreciation expense is one of those estimates. The estimate of net pension asset is also another one, and you make other estimates related to investments, long-term debt, donations, allowance for doubtful accounts. We do believe those estimates are reasonable for your financial statements. I'm sorry, I have not changed my page. I've got to get used to this, I think. So I'm up here now. So we are supposed to accumulate any known or likely misstatements that we identified during the audit. We believe that all of the statements, all the misstatements that we had identified as adjusting journal entries will be posted by the city. And so we disclose that also in this letter. Disagreements with management. A disagreement with management would be a financial, accounting, reporting, or auditing matter, whether or not resolved to our satisfaction, that could be significant to the financial statements or the auditor's report. So we're pleased to report that we had no disagreements during the audit. We did assist management in preparing year-end closed journal entries, accrual journal entries, and financial statement and related notes. Adjusting entries prepared by us have been reviewed, approved, and recorded by management in the books and records. So all of this was discussed with your treasurer and and your city clerk throughout the audit. We've requested certain representations from management, and we do have the management letter dated December 24, 2020. Management could request a second opinion if they did not agree with something that we were proposing, and to our knowledge, that did not take place. And so we generally discuss many items with your management, and however, that is not a condition of our retention. And they're just discussions that occurred in the normal course of our professional relationship with the city. In planning and performing your audit, again, we tell you that we looked at internal control for that purpose, but not for the purpose of reporting on internal control. And we did identify significant deficiencies, which we've already gone over. And we have these management letter comments that we're going to go through right now. And then in other matters, we applied certain limited procedures to your management discussion analysis and your required supplemental information that's listed in your table of contents. They consist of inquiries of management, including the methods of how that was prepared. But we're not expressing an opinion on your RSI material. And we were also engaged to report on your other supplemental information as listed in your table of contents. And we made inquiries of management, evaluated the content, form, methods of preparing that information. And we compared and reconciled the supplemental information to your records. So this report is really intended solely for the management, the board, and the mayor, the board of aldermen and the mayor. And it's really not intended to be used for any other purpose. So the adjusting entries are then follow on the next few pages. I normally don't go into those too much. Then we get into the comments. And so when looking at these comments, 15 of these comments were from the prior year. And so you're probably going to say, why is that? I think that at the beginning of 2000, July 1, 2019 to June 30, 2020, you had, a significant amount of turnover as far as the mayor was fairly new, your city clerk was fairly new. Patrick did not even start till about, I think, January or February. So 6 months in is when you got your new treasurer. And so a number of these things are difficult to implement as it is. And so trying to get them done within a 6-month period was probably even more difficult. Like I said, we have discussed several of them with Patrick, and I'm just going to go through them really kind of briefly. If you have questions, please be sure to ask me. And I think that, moving forward, he can get some of this stuff implemented so that next year, hopefully these comments will be rectified. So just starting out, you use Regis system to process your court transactions, but there's not a process in place to reconcile the amount of court fines receivable on a monthly basis. Receivables should be reconciled. You should be able to tell what you owed for court fines beginning of the period, what was new for fines, what was collected to get your ending balance. And you really don't have a process in place for that. Now, having said that, the city is moving towards, now I can't think of the name of it, the new court program that the state is requiring.
Show me courts.
Show me courts, thank you. They are moving towards show me courts, but you're still using Regis for some of those old court cases. So I think eventually when you get on the show me court system, it has a general ledger within that system that I've seen, and the way that system works, I think it'll work much better once the city gets the procedures in place and gets a handle on it and can get rid of the old Regis system. So I think that will come along with time. And the second comment also has to do with courts about documented procedures for receiving and processing of court fines. So, we're going to recommend that the city have written procedures for these type of things, because if it's not in writing, we can't really test it. And again, I think with the show me court, that's a great time to start to write some of these things down of what the process is for the courts, so that, that also helps if a court clerk leaves. somebody else can step in and have an easier time of trying to pick up where that person left off. The next comment has to do with credit card policies. Your policy states the mayor and department heads may have a bank card issued with the approval of the Board of Aldermen. Any exception must be approved by the mayor and noted in written form to the city treasurer. However, over in your rec center, your supervisor has a credit card, and we would just like to see that that has been approved and in writing, so everybody is aware of it. And then we also noted 5% of tested credit card purchases did not have supporting receipts, which I think is a little bit better than the prior year. And 13% of the items tested did not note the business purpose, which we think is very important to have on those credit card receipts. We did look at 4 credit card statements. We picked a sample of 4 statements, and 2 of those did not have the proper approvals on the statements. So you want to see all of that. We just want to see the documentation, because that's what we're looking at after the fact. Number 4 also has to do with written approvals for tested journal entries. And also within the QuickBooks system, the journal entry number system was not being used sequentially. So there was multiple times where we saw the same journal entry. So
Can you move the screen up so people can?
oh, sorry. Thank you for
That's all right.
me. Okay, I'm right here. The written approvals for tested journal entries, and the city does not use the journal entry number sequentially. So, and there were multiple same journal entry numbers. Sometimes QuickBooks can be a little hard to establish a routine journal entry numbering system. And I discussed this with Patrick about some ideas to make it easier so that that doesn't happen. And the numbers could be, you don't want to see that there's a journal entry missing, because, journal entries are things that people, you want to know why they did them, and you want to know that they're all accounted for. So as noted in the prior year, the city's operating bank reconciliation in the general fund had numerous items older than a year that had not been cleared. And additionally, the bank reconciliation journal entries outstanding throughout the year, which were determined to be erroneous. So those things just need to be reviewed a little bit more and, researched. And, if you have a journal entry that doesn't clear, ask why. So did somebody want to say something? So we're just recommending that those bank reconciliations be looked at just a little bit more detail to try to get rid of some of that old stuff. I will say they did look a lot better than they did the prior year. The next comment is, this one is known the prior year. Pool concession receipts taken at a cash register, which is not connected to the RecTrack system. So the Z-tapes supporting those receipts taken at the register are maintained. However, they're not sent to the finance department to include in the deposit reconciliation procedures. So we're also noting a lack of segregation of duties, since the park department management has custody of cash, can record transactions in RecTrack, and has voiding capabilities. Even if they're collecting money in other departments, you still want oversight. And one of the things that would be very helpful is that those cash register receipts, if they were sent over with the daily deposit, you could make sure that all the transactions are being accounted for and that they match with the money that came over with the deposit. So that's basically our recommendation, that those Z-tapes be sent over, and try to look for segregation of duties in all your departments that collect money. As noted in the prior year, the city is tracking the receipts of donated gift cards for city events, but there is no tracking of the distribution of the gift cards at events, nor safeguarding of undistributed cards for the future events. So we are recommending the city implement a process for the distribution of those donated cards at events and safeguarding the undistributed cards for future events. Now, you have some gift cards on hand, but I don't think you had any events in the year that we were looking at, but we still want to see that the process is in place. And I think Patrick is working on some templates so that there can be an inventory of those, and somebody's going to count those cards and make sure that they're all accounted for. And, gift cards are basically like cash. So you just want to make sure that you safeguard that, especially. As noted in the prior year, following items are in regards to cash receipts and deposits that were not addressed. So complete supporting documentation is sent to City Hall with deposits is not being sent to City Hall with the deposits for the person entering the information into the accounting software and making the deposit to compare. Again, we want the backup to go with the money so that you can make sure it all ties to what you think it should be. And then once the money's deposited, we expect somebody to compare that deposit slip to what was supposed to go to the bank, what that documentation was to make sure it made it there. And then the city and rec center do not have procedures for ensuring cash is kept in a secure location during business hours, like a lockbox or the safe is locked. And then it seems like one employee is responsible for receiving cash, recording cash in the general ledger system, preparing the deposit slips, and performing monthly bank reconciliations. So we need to kind of break that up a little. Don't give somebody all that control to where they're doing all those processes. Have another person involved in that to at least have some oversight within the cash department. The next comment, as noted in the prior year, during employee reimbursement testing, one of the 7 tested employee reimbursements was not approved by both the mayor and the department supervisor. We also noted one reimbursement did not contain a description of the business purposes for the travel. Again, just trying to shore up some of those employee policies and procedures for reimbursements. This next comment again is about courts, where the open bond report should agree with your general ledger account and should also agree with the cash in bank, because the cash in bank really is that bond money. So it's either owed to somebody. I mean, it's all owed to somebody until, they go through court. So they should all be reconciled and they should match. So when I say that they don't agree to each other, I don't want you to think it's off a lot, because if it was off a lot, it would have been a significant deficiency, but it's just not where it should be. Then the next comment, that we noted that the city did not originally adopt a budget for the bond fund for fiscal year 2019-2020. However, a budget was adopted for fiscal year 2020-21. And then we also noted that the city did not pass the 2021 budget until after the fiscal year started. So, it's important that the city try to pass their budget before the next fiscal year. So that's our recommendation, is to try to maybe start the process a little bit earlier so you can get it done on time. I know it's hard sometimes. So as noted in the prior year, bank reconciliations are not always being done in a timely fashion. So we're recommending that all bank reconciliations be prepared within your accounting software and prepared on a monthly basis. So I did notice that the bank recs are being done in your accounting software, which is an improvement over the prior year. But there were some months that were skipped, like you might do April, and then the next one that was done was June. And it may have been skipped because nothing happened in that account. Even if there are no transactions, you still need to go into each bank account and show the reconciliation so that the city has 12 months of bank reconciliations. I think that's very important. So I think that can be worked on going forward. So the next one has to do with 2 employees were missing from the 2020 active census data reported to loggers. And again, I think there's a lack of segregation of duties related to the recording of pension transactions in the loggers Eclipse system, because one employee enrolls new employees, terminates employees, and records biweekly wages in loggers with no additional review. So still, it's again, like with the payroll, you need some oversight, because an error could occur and you wouldn't know about it unless somebody, the employee said something, and they may not always notice that. So I think that's very important that somebody review that, what's entered for the logger system. As known in the prior year, the city did not have proper documentation of pay increases in employees' personnel file. There may not have been any pay increases in employees with employees in the year we were auditing. However, from the prior year, we still don't see, you want to see what the employees should be making in their personnel files so we can test it. Otherwise, it's very difficult for us to tell if that is in line with what the council approved or with what the board approved or not. So we're just wanting those updated pay rates in each employee's personnel file. This next comment is your policy says the capital asset data sheets are to be filled out when you have a capital asset addition or deletion. And we are not seeing that those forms are being filled out. So, and then we've also noted that the city really has not taken a physical inspection of your capital assets in recent years. So, you just kind of want to, again, take an inventory, make sure that what we're saying in, in your financial statements, these are our capital assets, that you really do have those still. So I think that's something that could be easily addressed. Okay, so then this next page are really new comments that we noted for this year. So the first one was we did some bid testing, and we looked at bids at all levels, and 2 of the bids that we looked at were for items over $10,000. On one of those, we did not see documentation of the board approval. As per your policy, the board approves bids that are over 10,000, purchases for bids over $10,000. So we're recommending the board that to the city that they follow their purchasing policy. We noted that the city does not maintain a list of invoices approved by the city council during their board meetings with the minutes. I think you're getting a list of the invoices that you want paid during the meetings, but when we go to the official minutes, that list is not within those minutes. And I think that needs to be retained with your minutes. Otherwise, I really don't know what you saw. So it's hard for us to test that. The next comment was, we noted real estate and personal property tax revenue receipts allocated to the debt service fund in accordance with the ordinance are not being transferred from the general fund to the debt service fund on a timely basis after the general fund receives those tax revenues from St. Louis County. And we also know that the sewer lateral tax money received by the general fund are less the sewer lateral expenses paid by the general fund are not remitted in a systematic manner to the sewer lateral fund during the year. So basically, we're accounting for those revenues in the right fund, but the dollars are not being moved. So you get to create this due to, due from. And, if you don't try to keep that current, then it ends up being more like a loan. And we don't want to see that between the different funds. So it's better for the city to, as soon as you get those revenues in, make that transfer, because that keeps it clean, and then no questions can be asked about, our due to, due froms continue to stay at a high balance instead of being, we want to see that they're moving, that you're fixing them, because we don't want you to have restricted monies in the general fund, because then you run the chance of using that money for an unrestricted purpose. And then the last one was, again, along those same lines, those interfund balances being settled on a timely basis. We don't want to see large monies owed between the funds, because we want that restricted money to be in its proper place so it can be used accordingly. And that's it.
So Angela, when you're talking about that, are you saying the transfer isn't done on paper, but it is done in the bank account? Like in the financials, it's not being done, but the bank account reflects it, or both?
Well, I'm saying that on the financial statements, we're recording that, like your debt service tax revenues, that
Right.
is recorded in the right fund, but it's going through a due to, due from account instead of the cash actually moving over there. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. So just explaining that when the deposits come in and majority of them are hitting the general fund,
Right.
they're going to the due to from account. I go in, I book the journal entry to adjust for it, and I implemented the process of doing it quarterly. But considering, like she said before, when you take into consideration that I started so much later in the year, and then operating in that way, it was kind of already behind at that point to do it quarterly, because it wasn't done on a regular basis prior to that anyway.
Okay.
So like I said, I've discussed all of these with Patrick, and I think that he has more of a handle on these situations and should be able to make some progress on some of them, maybe not all of them, because that's a lot to take on, but I think I think in many areas, we should be able to make some corrections this year.
I have a question. So I do have the previous audit. So basically, it was just 16 comments and recommendations. So that means that the majority of them transferred back over. So
Right.
yeah, so that's not good. Additionally, I'm not sure if you understand how our system is set up. Patrick is the treasurer. So he is not the financial director. In our ordinance, the mayor is, because we do not have a city administrator. So I know that you're referencing him, but in all actuality, that should come from the city administrator, correct? In your other municipalities?
In my other municipalities, it does come from, if you have a city administrator, it'd be the city administrator or your finance director. But the city doesn't really have a finance director. The reason I'm referring to Patrick is because I know that he has accounting background, that he understands what needs to be done, and he can work with the mayor to help him implement some of these things.
Okay, yeah. So as far as the training is concerned, because that is a repeated thing, do the finance individuals normally have an accounting background too, or that is just something that they go and get training for as well, or they hired with that particular expertise from going to school or some type of training program? Because, you know, the reason why I'm asking is because as we start this new year, we need to really focus our attention on shifting and putting those checks and balances in place. So, you know, that information would be helpful. And along with that inquiry, I wanted to know what services you all offer, because I know like a Jennings, they actually get services from their auditor. And so I wanted to have that answered as well. What could be provided if we were to consider it, so that we know what options we have available.
So if I will share with you that our firm audits Jennings. So we can do some consulting. As the auditors can come in and consult, and can work with your staff to do some training with them if you would like that. What I cannot do is make decisions. Like I, as an auditor, cannot come in and say, let's do the budget and prepare your budget for you, because then that would mean I'm making management decisions. But I can provide training and, you know, and help with alleviating some of these comments with recommendations. But it becomes the city's, I'll provide my recommendations for how that can happen. But at the end of the day, then the city has to say, yes, that's a good idea and we want to do it. I would be saying you have to do this, but I would be saying this is how it would make it better. And normally the cities take on our recommendations.
So at what point, when you have year after year the same type of comments that may be either detrimental to a state statute, your local statute, that is typical for maybe state to actually get involved with municipalities? Because I'm like, some of these things are repeated, but what's the consequence of these type of repeated concerns?
Well, you know, the consequence, I think, is gotta look to, I like it when cities address our comments, because then I feel like they're taking them seriously. If I continue to have comments like this, then they get elevated up from being just a comment to, you're not fixing this, and it's going to become a significant deficiency over time. When you're talking about the state getting involved, state audits can be very expensive, and I'm not, they're still going to come up with the same things that I'm talking about. So how are you going to fix them? It's better for us to try to work together to try to, I feel it's better for us to try to work together to try to these issues, and just instill some stronger internal controls for the city.
But I mean, I know there's a such thing as a state takeover. I mean, would this be a type of situation that the state would take over because of financial mismanagement or financial issues like that?
Oh, I don't believe you're at that. No. I don't believe that that's warranted here.
Mayor, can I ask a question, please? Mayor,
Yes, go right ahead,
Can I-
please.
I have a couple of questions, Angela.
Okay.
Would a budget committee, if we got a budget committee together of citizens that have accounting backgrounds, could that help us?
Some cities do put together either, they call it a budget committee or like a finance audit committee
Okay,
that we as auditors would then report to them, and they would report, they normally report to the board. Sometimes we report to both, but they ask the difficult questions then, because they go through those reports on a monthly basis with a fine-tooth comb.
okay, and I have one more question.
Mhm.
If the gift cards are purchased with the mayor's credit card and the mayor is authorized to make a valid expenditure of less than $500 without the approval of the board, does a credit card statement serve as the receipt for the purchase?
No, the credit card statement's not the receipt. It's the actual credit card slip. That's the
Okay.
receipt. And that's
So-
where we want noted on there what was purchased and that turned in. And then when the statement comes, then it should be matched to that statement to make sure that everything that we think the mayor bought is on that statement and nothing else that he would go, oh, that's not my charge.
Okay. Okay.
Well, to piggyback on that, Angela, but then those gift cards still need to be recorded how they're distributed, right? It's not just donated gift cards. If the city
Oh.
purchased gift cards, shouldn't we be recording that as well?
Yes, with the gift cards, I was talking about the credit card statement, I'm sorry. But the gift,
That was the question about the credit card statement. If he purchased like 10 gift cards for the youth commission, on the statement, the receipt that when he goes in to purchase those gift cards, it will say 10 gift cards. But when we distribute or when they're given out at that particular event, say John Doe got one that lived on Bell Fountain, we would document that John Doe that lived on Bell Fountain received one $10 gift card, correct?
yes, we want to see that they were given out so that there's never a question about these gift cards just disappeared.
Okay, that was my question.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
And that's what I understood it to be. I was just asking about the purchase of the gift cards, that would be distributed out to whichever way he wanted to do it. That was just one similar question. And could we get a budget committee that could help with
Yeah.
some of the comments?
Right. So you'd have the $100 of gift cards that came in, and then you'd show minus 10, minus 10, minus 10 if they went out in $10 increments and who they went to, so that, and then you'd say, oh, we still have 2 left here. So, and that matches my count over on my paper. That makes sense.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderwoman Reed, were you finished with your inquiry or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I was just wondering which comment or which finding addressed the distribution of the check that the board didn't authorize.
Well, it's hard for me to test that because, like I said, those lists of things that the board authorized are not being kept with the minutes. So I don't know what the board authorized or didn't really authorize.
So you saying like when we get over 500s and there's the actual over 500s and so that the same thing that we receive need to be kept with the minutes.
Right, because that way we can see that's what you expected to be paid. And so when we're testing that and we're looking for approvals, we can go, it's right here. It's in the minutes. That's what they approved.
Right, because when people make motions, just say, I approve, I make a motion to pay all invoices over 500. That tells no one nothing. So it makes sense that we would attach that there. So then
Right.
you know, I try to be more detailed when I say 13 invoices for a total amount of whatever, but at the same time, I say 13, she don't see a list of 13. So
So
that's
to fix that, this is the city clerk, to fix that, what I'll just start doing, and I started after I was asked about that, just put the invoices along with the minutes. And
Right.
that way, because right now the invoices are kept with the finance clerk. And I was not putting them with the minutes. I would only put in that you guys approved the over 500s. But that number won't be on there next year because I'm gonna have
Well,
have those
okay.
with the minutes.
I
I'm not
already
saying-
said what's yours.
I'm saying
Right.
keep the list of invoices. You don't have
Exactly.
an actual invoice with that list that they approved.
That
Oh, the
first
list,
page,
okay.
she just wants that header page. You know.
And when we vote to remove something off, then you have the minutes that will reflect that item number 5, 6, 7, 8 was removed.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was an easy fix.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. And I
And
think
some
the
of these
bank
other
recs
ones
too.
will be fixed too. I think, you know, that we have a new parks, department head, Parks and Rec. I think a couple of these I saw that would go with that, you know.
Right. And like I said, I feel like your bank recs are very close.
Yeah. And I think that whole data being lost kind of set us behind. So now if we can get up, you know, in front of this year, we'll be okay, even though we're already 6 months in. I don't know if maybe some part-time help would help the finance department to get them up to date. So when this year starts to end again, we'll be there.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So I did want to communicate that was as far as addressing some of these things. I know it was mentioned about consulting. I did discuss that with Angela and myself discussed it from the standpoint of potential savings overall too, and not waiting till year end to review every line item, especially considering when we talk about, you know, segregation of duties and majority of the activity being managed by you know, one and a half persons. So if we could implement that, that would assist on a regular basis as opposed to waiting annually to kind of go over some of these topics.
So Angela, can you draft some type of proposal?
Yes.
And would it be something we have to bid out or?
I can draft. Usually the state statutes don't require services have to be bid out, but you know, that's up to you. And especially if after you look at what we propose, you may decide you want to bid it out. But I don't mind drafting up something so that we could start with that if you'd like.
Angela, I thought we were friends. You said we may want to bid it out.
Alderman Carroll.
Yeah, so is the city or whoever going to come up with a plan to start working on these deficiencies? Because like I said, as Alderwoman Avant-Elliott has said, that, you know, these keep coming up year after year after year and they're never really addressed. So is anybody going to come up with a plan to start working on some of this, and who's responsible, and this is when we're going to get this done?
Hey, Alderman Carl, you know, for the Ways and Means meeting in January, I had this listed, you know, to start, you know, looking at these, you know, kind of one by one. We're not going to tackle all 20 of them at one time, but I believe some
Okay.
we can start tackling, you know, month by month.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and some of the items, some of the findings realistically have to do with documentation and implementation of procedures. So though they may have come up year after year, I think it's just a matter of actually sitting down and updating procedures to say, Say, for example, when it comes to journal entries for payroll, what I did implement just as recently as this past week is saying that these need to be done electronically. The backup provided for hours need to be added in the registry that's entered into Paycom, and that's sent electronically for approval electronically into an approval folder, so that, you know, stuff like that, and then document that procedure. So even in the case of gift cards and things like that, I believe last year I did create a registry a ledger document that's sitting in Fran's office. But like she said, when the fact that COVID hit and there's no true checks and balances of the implementation of the process, then documentation really would answer some of these things, not just, you know, changing processes and saying, okay, everybody needs to do this, but truly having it implemented, tested, and documented would answer, you know, all of these things. And that really will happen in the office on a regular basis.
So then let me interject this, because now I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing you're coming up with some things, and then Alderwoman Reed is talking about the Ways and Means Committee coming up with things. Then how are those two, you two, all going to communicate to actually be addressing this?
Yeah, I was gonna ask Patrick to sit in on that. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I do not like duplication of effort. I like to work smarter than harder.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, we come from the same place. So, yeah, and you know, along with, I have been saying that since I got here, that there's no documentation at the city. I am huge on QRGs, SOPs. You have to document. It makes my skin crawl when I hear this can't be done because so-and-so is not in the office. And that's not how it should be. So along with documentation, there has to be education, you know, so like he said, if you have it documented and no one's following it because they don't know about it, then it's worthless, you know. So we have to make sure it's being documented, but also communicated to the right person that will then be accountable and responsible to make sure these things are being done and handled on whatever frequency they're supposed to be handled on. You know,
yeah, and I think that's something that we can communicate about and implementing those things. And at the same time, we want to make sure the city is in a place where, you know, if no particular person either wins the lottery or gets hit by a bus, then everything stops. Nobody can get paid or nothing else can happen. We don't want that to occur either.
Exactly.
I'll say that we will together begin to work on these issues and make the necessary corrections. It won't be you, someone else. It will be us together making corrections.
Well, I think this was all very good discussion tonight, so I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you so much for presenting, and this will be recorded where residents that didn't get a chance to come will be able to hear it. We do have people in our community that have accounting background, so it may be a great opportunity for them to participate in some internal audits. So,
before I go, I did want to let you all know something. Our firm has decided to join another firm. It's a larger firm. It's a more national firm. They're heavily located though within the Midwest. We feel like we fit with them. We have a pretty significant governmental presence in our clients in the Missouri, and they have a pretty significant governmental clients in other states. And their name is Sikich. And so the transaction is set to close in a couple of days. Just can't believe how quickly this has come together. So basically, what does that mean for the city as being our client? Means that we'll have access, I think, to more resources, especially in line with computer programs and things like that. You know, we found with this COVID this past year how difficult it was trying to work remotely and do things efficiently through virtual means. And so we've learned a lot, but this will give us an opportunity to have more access to that type of infrastructure. And also it takes some of the administrative responsibilities off of my shoulders for our firm, because they have people that can handle that, and I can focus more on my clients, which has made me very happy. Our rates are not going up. If you're having an engagement letter that it's set, and so our rates will not be increasing for that purpose. So basically you'll see a name change. We're Sickich, and but you'll be working with the same people, and you'll be working with the local office. And so along those lines, not much will change. I just like when I'm in front of people to make them aware of it, so that you're not reading about it and going, what happened? So I
Spelling, Angela?
mentioned too. Pardon?
She
Can you
said spell it.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
S as in Sam, Ikich.
Okay, Sickich.
Yes.
Thank you.
I did have a question while you were on. I believe it was the year that we won our election that your contract was renewed. Are we close to that renewal date of the 3-year mark?
Let me see. The nice thing about being on Zoom is you can open up your file and look at it. Actually, you might be at the 3-year. Let me look.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I might need to try to see if we can send you an engagement letter next year. Oh yes, June 30, 2020. Yeah, your engagement letter is up. So I can send you a request to extend our contract, or if you decide to go out for RFP, I hope you keep us on the list so that we can send you a bid. Because I really do enjoy working with the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, do we have anything else that claim our attention in this report? If not, Dawn, we thank you so much for sharing with us tonight and pointing out some things that we needed to know, and we will come together and begin to make fixes. And you can record what I'm saying and play it back to me a year from now. So thank everybody for their participation, your input. Thank our citizens for being a part. And if that, then I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Alderman Carroll.
I second.
It's been
Happy
moved
New
and
Year,
properly-
everybody.
It's been moved and proper second that we will adjourn at this time. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposers? Ayes have it. Meeting's adjourned. Everybody have a great night.
You too.
Good night. Thank
Happy
you.
New Year
Good
to
night.
everyone.
Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.